Thank you. Right. Okay. Okay, students. So first of all, let me thank CS Sri Lanka for organizing this kind of an pre-scene analysis session for SL1 students who are going to face the exam on 24th. So as you all know, uh, already, we have initially planned to hold the exam on 17th. Unfortunately, just because of the crisis that we are facing, basically the energy crisis that we are facing at the moment, we have to reschedule the exam, and now the exam is going to held on 24th, right? So let's say, hopefully, without any problem, on 24th, 9 to 12, we all can sit for, not myself, you all can sit for SL1 paper for this July 2022, right? So with that understanding, student, we think that more or less the crisis will be, not the crisis will be over, the full problem will be sorted out, let's say by 20th, and we were able to help the exam without any interruptions. With that presumption, I am going to conduct this particular pre-scene analysis with you, right? So before starting the pre-scene, student, don't take this particular pre-scene analysis as a session to read the pre-scene and give you some elaborations, in our words, right? So it is not a some kind of a repetition or a reading of the pre-scene and giving some areas that we think. So take this as a learning experience, right? You know, as you all know, this is one of the subject, one of the difficult subject in CA curriculum. So if I say not one of the difficult subject, let's say the difficult subject in CA curriculum. So if you know, I think you already know, in the strategic level, this SL1 has been continuously a subject which is called lowest kind of a pass rate, right? So why? What's the problem, right? So we have to find solution for this. So in finding solution, because I have spoke a lot of students, and as a lecturer who are always finding solution for this specific problem from the student's perspective, I have came across some main issues relating to, I would say, relating to this SL1 paper. So the first thing is, a student, even though that you are thinking that you are really good at your theory knowledge in terms of financial reporting as well as auditing, or the, let's say, risk of material misstatement. So you know the subject has two parts. The first part is the financial reporting, the remaining part is the risk of material misstatement. I don't want to use the word auditing, so I will say the risk of material misstatement, because more or less these two parts are very important. But most of the time, what the students are doing, they are really focusing on the financial reporting, and they are not focusing on risk of material misstatement. Anyway, in today's session, myself and on the other hand, the Suranga sir will join, and he will take you through the risk of material misstatement parts, and he will let you know what are the important things that you need to focus within remaining, let's say, 2 weeks before the examination, right? So here, even though you think that you are really good at theory, you are not good at theory. Why? Good at theory means you should aware the theory, you should aware the accounting standard in a logical way. I know, let's say SLFRS 9. If I say SLFRS 9, maybe you can repeat the entire standard as it is, but it is not what we call the logical understanding. Because in the exam paper, they don't ask what is the subsequent measurement, what is the initial recognition, they don't ask. In the paper itself, they are asking student the practical application. They are giving some kind of a mini scenario or a case study, mini case study, or pre-scene based information, unseen, and they are asking what is the solution for this, right? And what is the solution for that? And they are using some action verbs as well. Action verbs. So likewise, student, there are a lot of reasons. I am highlighting whatever the important reasons. These reasons are not developed by myself. These are not my imagination. These reasons are provided by the examiners. So I think most of you have gone through examiner's comment, that report itself mentioning these general reasons. Then sometimes you are not good at answering. Even though you are good at theory, you are good at consolidation, you are good at risk of material misstatement, corporate governance, COSO framework, whatever the things, you are not good at answering, right? It is like a student. Let's say you are a chartered accountant, but if you can't demonstrate that you are a chartered accountant in an interview, you will not be recruited, right? The same way, even though you know the knowledge, if you are not in a position to demonstrate the knowledge during the 3 hours of paper, then you can't score whatever the requirements. That is also one of the big problem you have. And time management. So there are a lot of reason for time management issues, because most of the time this is an open book exam. Let's say open book exam where you can take permitted publication. If you are a student who are not in Sri Lanka, you can keep whatever the publications if you are doing in online mode. But other students, you can carry whatever the permitted publication. In that setup, student, most of the time students are trying to read the accounting standard during the exam itself, which is not going to happen, right? So you will end up with huge time management problem. So you should have good time management when it's come to this particular paper, right? Then student, another one important thing, I am not going to give the exam guidelines or any other things, but another one important thing is students are not analyzing the pre-scene well before going to the exam, right? So that is one of the problem. Most of the time, students are getting failed, especially the section 2 of the paper. As you all are aware, the section 2 of the paper is purely based on the pre-scene. And if someone say, we can't predict the paper by looking at the pre-scene, I am not fully agreed. What I can tell you is I can provide the examples, I can provide the evidence. You can go to the last December pre-scene analysis, right, which was conducted by myself and Idrisa, and you can go there and just see. I have mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, 4 consolidation questions that might come to the exam, and go there in the real paper and just look at one that I have mentioned was there in the paper itself. It is not my some kind of a superpower, or it is not that kind of a thing, right? So if you closely analyze the pre-scene student, you can have some kind of an prediction, which may be not 100% correct, but you can have some kind of a prediction. These things can be tested. This kind of a question can be tested. So that is what we call pre-scene analysis, not just reading the pre-scene, not just reading and highlight the pre-scene. No, you have to go beyond that, and you have to predict what kind of a scenario that might be tested during the exam. So that is why student, CS Sri Lanka has understood the fact of this pre-scene is very much important, and that is why they have organized this particular session. And today, my entire focus, I think you should have read the pre-scene at the moment. For myself, even though I am not going to sit for the exam, for my I have already read this pre-scene, let's say 10 times. You should have at least read this pre-scene 2 to 3 times as of today, as a student who are going to sit for the exam within 2 weeks' time, right? So what you have to do is, what we are doing here is, we are basically taking you whatever the key areas, and we will be telling you what are the things which might come for the exam. It's purely predictions, and not the examiner is giving some hint to us, right? We don't know who is the examiner as well, right? So anyway, we are going to give some kind of a prediction and some kind of a good analysis of this overall picture, right? So with that, understand, student, I am going to share the screen with you. Hopefully everyone see the screen. Let me give 1 second. Right. Can you all see the screen? Is it visible to you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay. So here, students, you can see, if you have any questions, actually, you can just type here, and I will be giving the answers at the end, right? So I will be not interrupting the flow. Rather than interrupting the flow, I will be giving you whatever the answers at the end of the session. End of the session means basically, let's say next 1 hour, 45 minutes I will be taking you through. Then after that, Suranga sir will join the session and he will take you through the risk of material misstatement part, right? So students, this time we have Ceylon Ayurveda Private Limited. So basically, when we say the Ceylon Ayurveda Private Limited, basically some kind of a small, let's say some kind of a private limited company we have this time, not a big company like that we had in last time, right? So here, important thing is, the first thing we have to understand where this pre-scene will apply when it comes to the real pay. Where? So normally, students, as you all know, section 1 is not going to give some kind of a reference to pre-scene. Only the section 2 is giving some kind of a reference to pre-scene. In the section 2 itself, so if you can see the last, whatever the past paper, section 2, let's say the question number 3 is purely based on, question number 3 purely based on the pre-scene. So here, what is important is, by referring to pre-scene, there are 3 types of questions which is coming for the exam. So most of the time, the consolidation question is definitely coming. Then the risk of material misstatement section also question is coming, and accounting standard related question also coming with reference to the pre-scene. So these 3 questions are coming out of the pre-scene, right? Going forward, and this is one of the disclaimer that I want to mention at the very beginning. So I think you all aware about the iceberg theory, right? Iceberg theory. So in iceberg theory also what we say, so iceberg, what is visible is very limited. There's very invisible or invisible parts. Let's say this part is not visible to us. So here this is like the pre-scene, whatever the things that are visible to us, but here unseen is coming on. So in the paper itself, you will be getting an unseen. In that unseen, there might be new information which make you completely different, which take you to the completely different extent rather than you are predicting in the pre-scene. So that is very much important. So don't stick too much to the pre-scene. And don't stick too much to the pre-scene and think, only this type of a question will come. It is not going to happen. So you have to go to the exam. I am not encouraging selective learning, because today I am going to tell you some accounting standard that you need to focus. In consolidation, some of the areas that you need to focus, but it doesn't say that you should not aware about the other areas. That is not encouraging the selective learning. I am giving you some kind of a hint to give you more focus, because the unseen, anything can happen. So this time it can be unseen, maybe unseen can change every scenario upside down. So you have to be aware of that. Right, students. So just to start with the company's background. So this time we have the Herat family. So Herat family is basically, so I know that you are already aware about the scenario, but just to visualize these things only, that I am going to give this summary. Right. So Herat family is basically located in Kandy, the central province of Sri Lanka. That is the origin of the Herat family. And Herat family is a family-owned private limited company. So when it's come to family-owned private limited companies, what is the main issue in Sri Lanka, student? Normally, when it's come to private limited companies, which is owned by families, there are a lot of corporate governance issues. So I think Indonesia sir will have a good time with you mentioning about the corporate governance and any other related issues. So if you think this company, when you are reading forward, you might understand even this company doesn't have the board balance. This company doesn't have the audit committee. This company doesn't have the basic corporate governance requirements, right? Which is in line with the Code of Best Practices of Corporate Governance issued by CS Sri Lanka. Right. So anyway, at the moment, this family, the father, the Saman Herat, who has originated or initiated the business with a 40% shareholding, and the Ruan Herat is their son, and the daughter Hasini Herat. So this is the family ownership. At the moment, they have 80% family ownership. So 80% of the business is owned by the family. And the biggest change that they have experienced in recent past is the Blue Rock Capital, DRC, a foreign institutional investor, has came into the picture, and he has acquired 20% owned by Saman Herat. Right? So now the 20% on Blue Rock Capital is driving the business forward. They are going to drive the business forward. That's why I am telling you that. So basically, at the very beginning of the pre-scene, anyway, on this time pre-scene, we have very limited information. Even when you consider the page numbers, very limited number of pages are there. Not like that. So earlier, it was like more than 20 pages. Now it is limited to 15 pages, very limited or to the point information we have. So with that information, what we can say is now this Blue Rock Capital has a main role to play in the unseen as well. Why? Blue Rock Capital basically driving the business. They are focusing on ESG, environmental, social, and governance reporting. That is the latest voluntary reporting standard which is discussion going in the global context. So they are focusing on that, and they are focusing on whatever the overseas expansion. Even the company CAPL, they are also focusing on overseas expansion. So they are focusing on the overseas expansion, and the Blue Rock Capital BRC, they also getting into connection with the company, and they are going to list in near future as well. So it is a private limited company. Now they are going to, because there is a pressure or an encouragement comes from the BRC to list this particular company in Colombo Stock Exchange. So that is the situation at the moment. So anyway, student, they are having some kind of an intention to issue further shares in future. So with that intention, they are expecting 2022 and 2023, that financial year, the ownership of the Herat family getting diluted. So if you go to the projected financial statement, at the moment, current year, we have like 100 million capital base, and it is going to increase like 125 million. It means they are projecting to issue another 25 million worth of stated capital, more or less that 25 million required or issued to Blue Rock Capital, right? So you have to have some kind of an understanding with that, because 20% shareholding, it is just an investment for Blue Rock Capital. Let's say Blue Rock is the parent, just an investment, but we might have the separate, complete different situation in future, because there are more issues to be given to the Blue Rock Capital, and Blue Rock Capital is soon going to be ended up with a parent by maybe the CAPL can become an associate or a subsidiary. Learn those things when we are going forward, right? So I think you should have some kind of an understanding about the listing as well, because these are the boards in the Colombo Stock Exchange. So you have 5 boards. Actually, the second board and the watch list is be considered as the non-compliance board, because if there's a problem with minimum public holding, we are going to show that particular company under second board. And if there's a non-compliance with CSC listing, maybe continuing listing, because we are going to show it under watch list. But if you remove these two, as a company, you can list in main board, there is a board, and empower board. So empower board is mainly there for the SME. And here, this company is not going to actually categorize under SME. So if you look at the /MB website, and if you go there, and you have something called specified business enterprises. So specified business enterprises are not coming under SME definition, right? So I am not going to describe those things in detail. So here, this particular company, and when you think about the asset or a turnover, that angle, this is not going to become an SME. So anyway, so we have 2 options, the main board and decided board. Again, they are going to see decided board. Why? Whatever the requirement, basically the stated capital requirement in minimum 100 million. So the company also, CAPL also have 100 million listed capital, stated capital. So in that case, student, more or less, they are going to list in Dirisavi board. So basically, when you are listing in Dirisavi board, you should have the capital requirement, stated capital 100 billion, which is there at the moment. And the other thing is they should have satisfied at least one test of this: positive net asset test, revenue test, and market capitalization test. If you don't aware, you have to go to the CSC site and you have to have good understanding on these 3. So positive net asset test means you should have positive net asset. So basically, student, one of these 3 tests should be made. Not all 3 required to make, one of these. Anyway, student, at the moment, with the turnover also 500 million plus, and net asset also positive. So market capitalization, actually, we don't have that much of information. Anyway, with that angle, the second requirement also satisfied. But student, there's a problem with the third requirement, minimum public holding. So as a company with a market capitalization less than 1 billion. So how I have taken market capitalization? Because in the pre-scene, they have mentioned 8 million shares and 12 rupee and 50, right? 12 rupee and 50 per share. They are mentioning some in the first page itself. So if I'm look at, you can get some kind of a rough idea about the market capitalization, and it should be less than, when there is the market capitalization is less than 1 billion, and then you should have minimum public holding requirement 10%. It means out of your shares, 10% should be held by 200 shareholders, which is not available at the moment. I don't know how they are going to meet this condition, right? In order to list, you have to satisfy this minimum party requirement, right? So anyway, that problem is there. So it is not given that much of information regarding this, but you should have some kind of an idea. Even though they are going to list, they have some kind of a problem, right? So this is the product range. So I have taken some kind of a similar company actually. So if you look at this particular company, students, so maybe I don't want to mention as well, but we can see it is like let's say the Siddhalepa, right? So more or less, if you are looking at it is like that. But anyway, Siddhalepa Mudalal is not from Kandy, right? He is from down south, and it is everything is not going to matching at the very I would say perfect level. But student, anyway, so don't get into, let's say Siddhalepa is a similar company, but don't get caught to those things and don't go and try to find what Siddhalepa did, right? So just focus on your scenario. But I have used some kind of a product portfolio that I have taken from the Siddhalepa brand, not just to promote the brand or not just to confuse you, but basically the product range is started from healthcare, Ayurvedic, pharmaceuticals, and herbal beauty products, essential oils and beverages. And this is how the market share is goes on. And 35% highest product range, highest product composition is from essential oil, and there's a 25% year-on-year turnover increase as well. And overseas demand also very good for the essential oils, because here the company produce the majority in essential oils, and the market prospectus also very good. So there's a good possibility to expand, especially they are having a good possibility to go overseas and expand the business. Right, moving forward. This is a business operation in a nutshell. What they are doing at the moment, what kind of business operation that they have at the moment. So basically, they have agricultural plots in Kalutara, sorry, in Kandy and Paducah. They have agricultural plots in Kandy and Paducah, and main factory is located in Kandy and located in Paducah, right? So what is happening, student? Then they are having export market, which have started from 2003 onwards. They have export market, and now they are more or less into research-driven, research-oriented company. Now, 2021 and 2022, it means the recent financial year, they have established a research and development center, R&D center. They have constructed. Now they are more or less like a research-driven company. And students, they are into basically the leadership of Hasini Herat, the daughter of Herat, Mrs. Herat, into two main projects, which is overseas expansion as well as local expansion. Also, they are going to in. So basically, with that, 5 new distributors they have already decided to onboard, right? And 30 new outlets they are going to use, and they are going to open in Western Province in coming 5 years, with an investment of 20 million for each outlet, right? And other hand, if you think about the farming side, they are having direction. They have built a rapport with the outgrowers. Let's say the farmers, with some having some loan scheme and any other some support activities as well. So basically, over 400 small scale farmers they are engaged, and they are giving some value additions to those farmers who are in their main business, let's say supply chain as well, right? So this is the business operation at the moment. So agriculture, they are manufacturing and they are exporting, and local expansion also they are expecting, right? So if you think about the board of directors, I think Suranga sir will discuss more about the board of directors, right? So when it comes to the board of directors, students, what is happening is now at the moment we have 3 board of directors: Saman Herat, Ruwan Herat, and Hasini Herat, right? And the MD is 75 years old, right? That is also you need to note it. I will keep those parts to Indonesia. And here, another one important thing is 2 seats, 2 board seats are requested by the Blue Rock Capital. Blue Rock Capital. So when it's come to, let's say, consolidation, student, with having 20% shareholding, you can conclude it is just an investment, just an investment. So I am talking about the Blue Rock Capital side, not in the perspective of CAPL. If you think about the Blue Rock Capital perspective, 20% shareholding, just investment. But if you think about the board, let's say these 3 directors and 2 is coming from BRC, then you have 5 directors. So 2 directors out of 5. Of course, you are having more than 20% power in the board, it means it will bring you significant influence. So for the Blue Rock Capital, if they are giving these two boards seats, the Blue Rock Capital, this company is going to become an associate. So what you have to keep remember is when you are deciding the very important, when you are deciding the controlling power, don't get caught to the percentage of shares, right? Shareholding. So you have to think about the controlling power, significant influence. Maybe there are other sources which brings you the controlling power. So here also we have one source, which is what? Board seats. Maybe some potential shares, some other options are there. Source of power are there, which brings you the power over the company, significant influence over the company. So you have to think about that, because if you go and closely look at the past papers, you can see that kind of questions are coming from consolidation. So not just decide the controlling power based on the number of shares, you have to go beyond that and you have to decide the controlling power by looking at the other factors. So keep eye on those factors as well. Anyway, students, there are some new projects in line in the pipeline. So more than myself, these things will be important for Suranga sir. So I think that actually he will discuss these factors in detail. So basically, as a company, this company is more or less into research-driven company, overseas expansion, local expansion, supply chain expansion, right? So in that process, student, they are more or less into technology side as well. So this particular side, you can see they have a lot of technological advancement projects, the business process automation. In that project, they have two main projects. The new ERP is going to implement, right? There are a lot of system related issues now, unauthorized softwares, right? Unlicensed softwares, no integrated ERP, a lot of problems we have, but they are and have a new ERP, and the field and factory operation automation softwares, which is conducted manually now. So these two projects are coming under business process automation. Other than that, they are into latest and innovative technologies, which is we call the robotic process automation, right? So during this phase, the robotic process automation might give some kind of a challenge, right? So I know in my company student, so we have implemented the RPA project, let's say 2 years back. And there are a lot of employees we have to convert it from their current user role or the job role, because the robot is doing an amazing job. He can do actually the job done by 2 to 3 individuals within 5 minutes, right? Very effective. So here, this company also, they are going to implement the robotic process automation. Maybe in future, there might be some cases with the labor, because some of the labor's jobs might be lost, right? So anyway, but means come to the technology side, it is one of the good advancement that they are going to implement. And the BI, right, business intelligence also they are going to have. Anyway, the CFO, who is an ACA, right, Prasanna Pereira, right, he's also very much keen on, and he's also driving this RPA and BI project, and that also the pipeline. And they have BPR project, business process reengineering. Why? If you go and closely look at the financial statement, you will understand, right? There's a huge problem with the cost structure. If you think about that, if you can prepare a common size financial statement, right? Common size financial statement, you can see as a percentage of revenue, the distribution expenses and the administrative expenses have huge amount. Let's say the distribution expenses 27% of the revenue, right? Out of the revenue you are earning, 27% is for the distribution expenses. Very huge distribution expenses. Likewise, so you should have rethink about the cost optimization. So business process reengineering will help you out in that angle as well. So anyway, Suranga sir will take you through these, and he will let you know what are the current system related issues and what are how these things going to solve that particular issues. He will discuss more, and I will keep that part further. And other issues is that we have lack of independent directors. I'm not going to talk too much on this aspect. So I think someone is switch on the mic. Please, can you switch off the mic? So it is disturbing us, right? So a lack of quality committee, right? So as you know, as per the corporate governance, you should have some subcommittees because board can't do everything. You should have subcommittees. In this particular company, you don't have audit committee at least, right? So you should have nomination committee, remunerations related party. Likewise, you should have some other committees as well, right? But here, audit committee itself not there. But audit committee is one of the basic requirement. Even though you are going to list, the corporate governance requirement will come, right? So you should have good understanding on that. Then AGM held, right? AGM also not held. Board minutes also not maintained, right? Very high issues. Interest of certain stakeholders have not been properly addressed, and CFO is not with certain accounting treatments. So CFO is saying some of the accounting treatments are not correctly applied. There are a lot of issues. It says there are a lot of issues. So one accounting issue that I can mention. So you go there in the financial statement and just look at the financial. Sorry, just look at the financial statement, students. You can see. So when it's come to the balance sheet or the statement of financial position, you have the other financial assets. But if you go to the note, sub-note, they are mentioning CAPL has invested treasury bills and the shares, right? CAPL has invested in treasury bills and shares. But if you know, if we are invested in treasury bills and shares, we should have some asset categorization called FVTPL. Normally, the shares, the default classification is FVTPL, but you don't see any FVTPL categorization in the balance sheet, right? And you don't see even, we know in 2022, the market values have decreased. With the current economic crisis, the market was volatile. In that case, the share price decreased. But if you go there and closely look at, there's no that kind of a fair value reduction is evident through the balance sheet, right? So there, I think SLFRS 9, they have not applied even the categorization, the classification, and the initial recognition and subsequent measurement, they have not correctly applied. So there are a lot of accounting issues which might test for the pre-scene. So which might test for the paper. So I am not going to show you the financial statement. Anyway, Suranga sir will take you through the financial statement as well, highlighting the risk of material misstatement. And anyway, there are some ratio kind of things, but if you closely analyze the ratios, I think Suranga sir will let you know the significant risk and all those things based on the ratios as well. If you closely analyze the ratio and all those things, student, there's no much bigger problem in terms of solvency or the liquidity of the company. But profitability side, we have some small kind of problems. But other than that, there's no big problems at the moment, right? So here, student, going forward. So the most awaited part. So what are the possible questions that can come for the exam? So if you have any question, student, now you can ask. Up to now, if you have any question, you can ask. Before we are starting or giving the predictions, if you have any questions, now you can ask. Any questions, students? Right. Anyway, hope that you don't have any questions up to now. But if you have any concerns, you can ask it from me. Anything related to pre-scene or anything related to paper. Any questions are welcome, students. You are free to ask. It's a free world, right? We are all free men, so you can ask any questions. So I encourage you to ask any questions, right? So I will move forward and I will give you the, based on my predictions, these can be slightly changed from your predictions, right? So based on my predictions, what kind of a question that might come to exam? Actually, we can connect a lot of standards to this particular pre-scene, right? Because this is some kind of an open-ended pre-scene with very limited number of information. So they can test from anywhere, right? They can test from anywhere, but I will give you the most likely areas that might test for the exam. That, I am using the words very carefully, that might test, right? So here, the first one, I am going to reference to pre-scene and I am going to testable area and the possible question. So CAPL owns many agricultural crops and land. So of course, this particular company is into agriculture, right? So they are into agriculture. So most of the time, the LKS 41 can be tested. So as you know, student, if you go there and look at the past papers, what is the trend? Earlier, if you take the past papers like 2020 December or the 2021 June, more or less the majority of the paper is tested from SLFRS 9, SLFRS 15, and SLFRS 16, right? But now, if you closely look at the last two papers, you can see the small standards also tested. So the last time we had a question from LKS 2, right? So before that, we have the question from LKS 36. Likewise, student, but LKS 41 is not that much tested in this particular paper. Not that much means they have not tested in this paper. So since this time we have a company from the agricultural sector, definitely there might be a question from agriculture. Why? There are a lot of areas to test. If you think about the biological assets, even the biological assets we can divide into two: consumable and bearer, right? So when it comes to consumable biological assets, student, you know, consumable biological asset only we are going to treat it under LKS 1. But bearer biological assets, you have to treat under LKS 16. Agricultural land is not coming under LKS 41. Agricultural land should be treated under LKS 16, right? So there can be a question combining LKS 41 and LKS 16. And other thing is LKS 41 is having a direct link with LKS 2, right? It is having a direct link with LKS 2 because at the time of harvest, the biological assets are becoming the agricultural produce, and the same day itself, agricultural produce become the inventory of the company. So whatever the fair value less cost to sell you are recognizing the agricultural produce, that value become the deemed cost as per LKS 2. So three standards you can connect, right? So normally, student, the examiners more or less like to connect the accounting standard LKS 41 with LKS 16, likewise. So they did that because they are connecting PP with investment property, PP with borrowing cost. So same kind of a question, very good question can be tested from LKS 41. So keep eye on that. And the next one, complaints from some product liability claims. There are some few legal cases as well. And some salary has not been paid for outsourced employees. So here, student, if you closely look at the scenario, some of the statutory dues has not paid by the outsourced company because we have hired some employees for the outsourced company. That outsourced company itself has not paid. Let's say EPF, ETF, they have not paid. But if you go to the Sri Lankan laws, especially if you go to the EPF Act of Sri Lanka, even you are hiring outsourced employees, even you are hiring shift employees, temporary employees, you have to pay the EPF. Even you are hiring from outsourced company, you can't get rid of that obligation. Let's say you are hiring from outsourced company, but you have to ensure that EPF and ETF are paid by that company for that employee. So here, you can't say this is not my baby because that employee is anyway from the outsourced, whatever the firm. But anyway, that employees have effectively worked under your roof and you are liable for some statutory dues, right? So you can't get rid of saying, no, I have paid to outsource company. You are liable as per the labor rules in Sri Lanka. And anyway, student frauds also have taken place in distributors, but there are no much information on that. Maybe whatever the supply chain partners who got affected just because of these two distributors, maybe some of the customers might be affected. In that case, they might also have some legal cases, which is not given in that much of a detail in this particular pre-scene. And again, they are mentioning they have several complaints regarding CAPL on quality of the profitability of the product. So when he have this kind of issue, student, of course, there's a possibility a question can come from LKS 10 and LKS 37. Because normally LKS 37, we need to make a provision, but LKS 10 also coming. Most of the least legal cases, the subsequent hearing or whatever the things are appearing after the reporting date. And in that case, you have to decide whether it's an adjusting event or a non-adjusting event based on the accounting standard. That is very much required, right? So that kind of a question also can come. Then again, the Center Environmental Authority has conducted environmental related audit, and there's a risk the license is getting revoked just because of some kind of a problem with the waste management of the company, right? So this is a serious issue. Why? Anyway, this all can combine to LKS 10 and LKS 37, but there's issue with LKS 1 as well. The going concern assumption. So this is a threat to going concern. So as per LKS 1, anyway, with respect to auditing standards, Suranga sir will let you know how to assess the going concern and all those things. But as per the financial reporting aspects, I will tell you, when there is a problem with going concern, you have to assess. There is an assessment is required, not actually when there's a problem. Normally, as per LKS 1, every financial reporting date, we need to think about the going concern about the business. So here, this particular case, you have to carry forward. You have to carry forward and you have to have a good ongoing concern review. So what are the actions we are taking? Can we rectify this? Can we do the rectification within 6 months? Because the CEA has given only 6 months. So likewise, you have to give a comprehensive plan on this. It is a disclosure requirement as per LKS 1. So today, the company has become a research-oriented company, and the Research and Development Center was established in the recent financial year. An auditor have concern regarding the capitalization of R&D expenses and the R&D center. So as you know, student, R&D is one of the debatable area. So when it's come to LKS 38, as you all know, R&D, research and development cost, there are some restrictions that you can capitalize. Anyway, internally generated intangible assets, you can't capitalize. But research and development also some kind of internally generated intangible asset. But here the problem is this research and development expense can be capitalized. So as you all know, as per LKS 38, research cost anyway we can't capitalize. Research cost we can, but development cost you can capitalize upon meeting some conditions. Upon meeting some conditions. So here, I don't think that they have applied the correct accounting treatment. So there is a question which might be tested from LKS 38 knowledge. And again, the development center is anyway not going to capture under LKS 38. It is going to capture under, it's a construction, and it is going to capture under LKS 16, right? And as you all know, if there is an asset which takes substantial time to getting constructed, it is satisfying the definition of qualifying asset. So there might be a chance that they are combined LKS 23 because the pre-scene itself, they are mentioning the funding to build R&I and borrowing they have obtained to fund this particular research and development center. So why can't they combine 16, 38 and 23 and they can have a marvelous question, right? Very beautiful question out of this particular area. So that is also one of the high possibility which might be tested from the exam. So brush your knowledge 38, 16 and 23 as well. And student, there's a revaluation gain jumping to the balance sheet at once, right? So if you go to the balance sheet and if you go to the P&L and you see the last 3 years, there is no revaluation, but this time 101 million huge revaluation suddenly coming into the P&L, right? There might be an issue. We don't know. And you have to think about the revaluation because if you think about the last financial year, so it was some kind of a economy-wise, it is not a good year, some kind of a dull year. So most of the properties in practically the revaluation gains were not there. But here we don't know what this is. So you have to think extra careful on this because anyway, the pre-scene, we don't have that much of information to assess on this. But anyway, the revaluation itself involving some significant assessment and estimation. And anyway, it is a part of the risk of material misstatement as well. But anyway, other than that, it's come to financial reporting side. So that thing will Suranga sir will explain. But for me, the financial reporting side, they might have applied incorrect application of revaluation gain. You have to think about, right? Again, then one more thing. CAPL has begun to export product to overseas market. So normally, student, if you closely look at the paper, last few papers, the examiner is more or less linking the paper to current economic context. So why I am telling you that if you closely go there in the COVID times and see the paper, there are a lot of questions from COVID. How the audit committee should act, how the disclosures need to be made. Likewise, the COVID, they have combined with the paper. So why can't they combine the current economic crisis to the paper? We have a dollar crisis. We have an increasing exchange rate. That is the biggest dollar crisis related lot of fun. And we have an economic recession. Why can't they combine? So I see this is one of the good points to combine the current economic context to your paper. So with that export market, you are exporting good to the foreign customers, right? So you are getting your revenue in terms of USD, and you might have some trade receivables. When you have a trade receivables, of course, as per case 21, it is a monetary assets. You know, when we are converting the monetary assets into our currency at the reporting date, what is happening? What is happening? You have a gain or loss, translation gain or loss. So why? Why can't they test? Yes, they can test on LKS 281 knowledge, as well as there is a connection with SLFRS 9 as well. Maybe you are getting trade receivables in terms of USD. It is your cash flow. So you have a risk of exchange rate fluctuation. So why can't you go for a derivative? Why can't you have a forward agreement with the bank or financial institution to protect your cash flow risk, right? Which is in the USD denominations. So why can't they test a derivative? Some derivatives, you know, you can apply hedge accounting upon meeting the hedge account effectiveness requirement. So why can't they apply cash flow hedge requirements? They can, students. So derivative and hedge accounting is one of the toughest area in SLFRS 9, and lot of students doesn't have a logical understanding to approach the derivative and hedge accounting, right? Derivative and hedge accounting, they don't know when to recognize the derivative and when to recognize hedge accounting, because every time you can't apply hedge accounting, it should satisfy my criteria, right? So likewise, student, SLFRS 9, they have not tested a good question from derivative and hedge accounting. So why can't this time? They might test. So keep eye on that as well. Then the last one, I have mentioned this earlier. They are mentioning in the additional information that the treasury bills and share price that they have invested. But normally when it comes to share price, the default classification is FVTPL. You have an irrevocable election to classify this under fair value through OCI. Don't go and apply SPPI test or business model test to shares, because it is completely wrong, right? You can't apply business model test or SPPI test to shares, equity instruments. So SPPI test and the business model test valid for debt instruments only, right? So you can apply those two tests to debt instruments, and maybe they are asking for a classification or some correction, rectification of errors. So that also might have a possibility. Other than this, student, this particular pre-scene can connect to some other small standard as well. Let's say SLFRS 8, because we have a lot of revenue streams now. So operating segments can be tested. And we have some possible potential shares might be there. Then earning per shares can be tested, right? Earning per share can be tested. Likewise, student, there are a lot of things that can be tested, that small standards also can be tested. So I am not going to give you the entire set of accounting standard, but I will keep limit to these. And I think most of the time, there are very possible tests from this. Again and again, I am mentioning, student, don't get angry with me or the institute if you haven't got a question out of these standards telling by us, because this is only the prediction based on the pre-scene. The unseen is coming, and examiner can do anything, right? So that is the thing that you have to aware. So going forward, student, so I will be taking another like 2 to 3 minutes, students, not more than that. Then I will be handing over the session to Suranga sir. Possible question from group accounts. So last time, student, actually, this is my personal experience I'm sharing. So when I am going through the pre-scene, right, it was like when I am going through the pre-scene in last December, 2 to 3 possible questions suddenly came into my mind. These can be tested. But this time, it is very difficult to predict. Why? Very limited information, and very limited information on group structure. Because this is not a group of companies, right? This is a standalone private limited. Only the connection is with the BRC. And another problem is, sometimes they are asking to prepare the financial statement of BRC, right? Blue Rock Capital. But again, the problem is Blue Rock Capital is a foreign investor, and their functional currency is USD. I don't think in a CS Sri Lanka paper, they will tell you to prepare a set of accounts using USD, right? USD. So that kind of a mindset I have. But anyway, for your own betterment, I have decided, let's say, four type of questions that can be tested during the exam, right? So before moving that, student, before moving that possible questions, what I want to tell you is, what is the prospectus of this particular paper? What is the prospectus? So basically, if you look at the pre-scene, what they are talking about, overseas expansion, listen very carefully, overseas expansion, right? Distributor expansion, local expansion. They are working with some farmers, outgrowers, maybe the supply chain integration, upward integration or a downward integration, right? They are talking about expansion, expanding the business. They are into new ERP, BPR projects, the BI, new technological advancement comes in. And they are going to list the company, and they are going to have ESG reporting. And if you think about the additional information, you can go for the annexures and just think the annexures. Go there and think there, look at the annexures mentioning the industry overview. How would be the industry in future? There are a lot of global opportunities we have not touched at the moment, right? Global demand is high. Ayurvedic products, right? Likewise, there are very positive prospectus are giving. So very unlikely that a disposal kind of a question will be tested, right? So more or less, student, my personal opinion, personally, I believe this time they will test from acquisition. They will test from acquisition, right? So acquisition in the sense, don't expect the corporate level or the CL2 kind of a simple acquisition question. Complex consolidation, you have, of course, the step acquisition kind of a question is very likely when it's come to this particular paper. Why I am telling you that? Just because by looking at the pre-scene, you can judge this is where they are going to head, right? So likewise, that I am going to predict, right? So I will show you some four questions, actually, four kind of questions that might be tested. The first one, CAPL. So acquisition of a new company, including a step acquisition, maybe they are into a lot of research and development now, students. So they might think about acquire R&D related kind of a company, or they might think about diversification. Because as you all know, I am not telling you go and look at the Siddha paper, but if you look at the Siddha paper, what they do is they basically into Ayurveda product. Now they are into resort side. Likewise, now they are diversifying their business. So why this company also might think about Ayurvedic resort, maybe Ayurvedic hospital, right? Likewise, they also might think about some kind of a diversification. So in that case, in the unseen, they might test from acquiring of another unrelated kind of a new venture into this particular, and they are going to build up a CAPL group, not a CAPL individual company. And integration. Integration is they might acquire some suppliers, right? They might acquire some suppliers. Maybe they might acquire some distributors, forward integration or a backward integration. Likewise, they might think about the supply chain integration, right? In that case, because they are in the expansion mode, they are not in the diversifying mode. So they are not, sorry, not diversifying, they are not in the disposal mode. They are in the expansion mode. So more or less, I would say that this is why I am giving this as a first prediction, right? So this can be this kind of a question might be tested. Then CAPL and acquisition of the foreign subsidiary. Why I'm telling you this? Because student, normally in your paper, the complex consolidation, so foreign subsidiaries are included, but in corporate level, we don't have foreign subsidiaries. But strategic level, SL1 paper, we have foreign subsidiaries and never tested for the paper, right? Never tested for the paper. So now, since we are having some kind of discussion with dollars and all those things as well, acquisition of a foreign subsidiary, because we are thinking about, as a company, CAPL is thinking about a foreign expansion or overseas market. Maybe we might acquire a foreign company as well, and that is why you should, if you are not touching the foreign subsidiary, this is the high time to brush your knowledge when it's come to foreign subsidiary. That is very much required. And these are another two remote kind of prediction that I'm giving. And parent, there might be a new parent coming in and he might acquiring CAPL, right? So there might be a new parent. So if I can't remember the exact SL1 paper, that actually in that paper, the pre-scene is, let's say, PSC is from the CAPL, but the consolidation question is from a separate company, which is going to be the parent, right? That information given in the unseen. So similar kind of a thing can happen, right? Don't know, can happen, right? Acquisition of a CAPL, right? And then itself also some kind of a step acquisition. Right. Then the BRC, acquisition of CAPL. And BRC, I told you, since the BRC is a foreign institutional investor and their financial statements are more or less prepared in terms in foreign currency, let's say USD or any other, I don't think this kind of a question can be given, but don't know, examiner can test that kind of a question as well. Okay. Those are my 4 predictions when it comes to consolidation. So if you have any questions now, you can ask the student, because I am going to hand over the session to Suranga sir. Right, we have a question. Sir, is it possible to test LK's 29 hyperinflationary economy? Okay, student, to answer that, we are not in a hyperinflation, right? Even though we have the high inflation, we are not a hyperinflation, because to say hyperinflation, we need to we have to look at 3 years continuously, right? But anyway, there can be tested, but very conceptual kind of a question, not like I can't actually predict that kind of thing, because these are not from the pre. So can test, right? Because in the study text also, you have the hyperinflation LKS 29. So at least before going to the exam, go to the study pack and just look at the LKS 29 and have some kind of an understanding what are the requirements when it comes to hyperinflation, right? So what should be, so we have a question, what should we do when contingent liabilities there for goodwill computation? Okay, when there's a contingent liability for the goodwill computation, you have to take into the account, right? So I think recently the CA Sri Lanka has issued, actually there's a change in the SLFRS 3 in terms of the global accounting standard, that also clearly mentioning if there's a contingent liability, you have to refer not the LKS 37, you have to refer the SLFRS 3 and you have to take into account. Contingent liability you are taking into account, right? So it is possible to keep the hard copy of the pre-seen paper when I am doing the exam. Online exam, of course, you can keep whatever the books, right? Even the class note also you can keep, right? In online exam, you can keep whatever the books, but physical exams, of course, you can only carry the permitted publications, right? So anyway, institute will give you some guidance on online exam students. So a lot of students asking me for the guidance. Anyway, I have discussed this matter with the institute and they agreed to do some guidelines to the students who are doing online exams. Okay, students. So I think Suranga sir is with us. Sir, are you there?
Yes, Chamath.
Okay, sir. Right. Okay, students, then hope you don't have any questions, but if you have any question, you can type, because I am in the session for another, let's say, another 15 minutes. So you can ask any question during Suranga sir also conducting the session. So I am handing over to Suranga sir. Suranga sir, thank you, and students, thank you, and good luck for the exam. So this time we need to have a good pass rate when it's come to SL1. Thank you, students. Right.
Hi, thank you very much, Chamath. I hope students, you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear.
Yeah, thank you. Let me share my screen. You can also see my screen, no?
Yes, I can see.
Right, thanks, Chamath. Right, so I'm sure Chamath would have done an interesting start. I saw his presentation with all visuals, so you have a very good picture now about the overall case study. So essentially, I will focus without taking much time. One important key thing that I want to tell you is that when there is a pre-scene which was released a month ahead, you can really structure your study and expect some question. I heard Chamath said there are limited areas because in other questions you can easily identify some of the scenarios for financial reporting. However, while you go through this, you will see a lot of connection to this this part of the syllabus, which is about 45% of your paper. So very clearly, The emphasis on non-financial reporting, governance, ethics, and risk of misstatements, right, together is 45% of the syllabus. So all these areas will not come, but examiner has given indications in the pre-scene, or pre-scene is set in such a manner, different types of questions can be tested. So therefore, you don't need to really expect that this is the question that will come, but be open-minded. I will guide you through like we did. I remember last pre-scene, if you look at our last pre-scene discussion versus to what level those have been tested in the paper, you can clearly see, because very easily some areas you can identify, and then what you should do is to deep dive, read your notes now itself and prepare to write the answer. So straight away I'll go to the possible questions in this area. I have put 5 or 6 topics. Sorry, the last one should be number 6. So one key thing which is very clearly given in the case study is the ESG reporting, right? So I would like you to ask, what are the ESG reporting platform in Sri Lanka? Please use the chat, and now you can answer, right? If there is a ESG question, that what guidance you are going to refer in answering. If examiner can give any of the question, why ESG is important, what do you understand by ESG, what are the ESG issues this company is facing, right? Likewise, what framework you can recommend them to follow. And this is going to be a listed company. Examiner can also say that the very first annual report they are going to do is to come up with the integrated reporting. So is there a connection between integrated reporting and ESG? So very clearly, examiner is emphasizing that non-financial reporting is going to come, and that is under the heading of ESG. So can I get some answers from the chat? What frameworks are available in Sri Lanka that can test your knowledge actually at a glance, whether you are aware on this or not? Please answer as I go through the balance. That is one area. Secondly, there are a lot of governance issues. This being a family-owned company, they are bringing an outside investor, and that investor is insisting to bring 2 outside directors. And in family governance, you know, there is CEO, chairman, 1 person. I mean, all of these governance issues can be easily tested. So the risk of having CEO, chair, 1 person, evaluate the board effectiveness. What are your recommendations to bring new board members? How do you restructure the board? Any of those questions, right? Can come from corporate governance angle. So you can prepare for those questions. I'm expecting your answer for ESG reporting now while I talk. So I don't still see an answer. Right. Anyone? What ESG reporting platforms we can use in Sri Lanka? No answers? Right. I don't know answers, no?
No, so we can't see.
Right, okay. So is there any guidance you can refer to ESG if you are supposed to answer this question? Is there any open book reference on ESG? I am asking question from you, huh? Students?
Suranga sir, excuse me.
Yes.
Students are giving the answer. It is visible to me.
Sorry, Chamat. So I was looking from my phone. It's not there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, yeah, we all have answered. Let's see. Yeah. Sorry, Chamat. Now I can see. Yeah. So yeah,
Yes,
so
you
most
have
of
answered. Yes,
most say GRI,
yes.
principle-based framework, GRI. Okay, so that's why your understanding is limited, but you will learn. That's good to know. I mean, see, don't limit it to GRI. GRI is just one framework, so I'll cover that anyway. And then I also ask you another question: is there open book reference that you can refer and write an answer if ESG is tested? Can I get answer for that also? Yeah. So one student says integrated reporting. Okay. Right, I'll cover anyway that. Then governance we discuss. IT very clearly in the case study, they talk about implementation of a new ERP. This is very similar to the previous paper in terms of IT. They say systems are not talking to each other. There is no integration. There are manual journal entries. Obviously, you can questions. If there is a question, you can easily connect those pre-seen information to explain what. IT can come under either course or framework because information system and communication is one aspect of the course or framework. That is one way it can come. The other thing is you can look at this totally from a fraud angle that the manual journal entries can increase the risk of fraud. Likewise. Then there are internal control issues given. For example, there are frauds in distributors, those information. I will, in the next click, you will see what points are applicable under each of these issues. And accounting policy, also there are issues. I think there is ethical issue also given and a lot of risk of misstatement. Especially I heard Chamath was explaining to you now, talk to few companies in Sri Lanka and ask. Now today we got a message saying that the inflation is going to go up to 70% over the next few months. Now, what is the real impact? You see, most companies are struggling. Big item is going to hit hard. That's exchange gain or loss, especially a company that has a foreign currency related transaction. And you see those revaluation of monetary assets at the closing rate. Now, when you do that, there is impact on earnings. So there is a lot of pressure for the management to maintain profitability. The financial statements are really going to be affected. So that in turn indicates what risk? Fraud risk, right? Management bias to understate it. Things like that can easily come. Fraud risk. Remember, fraud risk is a separate chapter, separate area in your syllabus. Then ethics, very clearly there is ethical. I mean, one is there are business ethics issue, and then there are ethics relating to finance as well. The accountant has some issue. Number 6, risk management. Now, risk management also, if some question, it's not main question, but corporate governance. If you go through corporate governance covers risk management as well. So risk management, something examiner can test. For example, evaluate the importance of implement of the case study pre-seen says there is no ERM risk management process. So then they ask from a question from governance angle, right? Advise, so recommend to the board on implementation of a ERM. So you can answer that from your open book, corporate governance code. You should be aware that, most of the students know only corporate governance means number of directors independent. That's not corporate governance in practice. I mean, those are just standards, but application of corporate governance really require for you to think in terms of application. Now, if I expand this information to support this with page references, you can see ESG focus has come because of this institutional investor, page number 2. And then because company is going to be a listed company anyway, they might say integrated reporting if they want to test. Maybe they want to implement this in the first year itself, ESG or non-financial reporting using one of these framework. You mentioned only one framework. There are several framework. Yeah, another student answered saying integrated reporting. That's also correct. You can bring ESG aspect easily through integrated reporting framework as well. Then the other big hint given, only sensible student will see this page number 3. This paragraph is a learning outcome in the syllabus. Syllabus learning outcome examiner is given in a sentence. Very easily a question can come, right? Now, if I ask you, if I am an examiner, if I want to set a paper, I need to connect my question to a learning outcome. That is the power of learning outcome when you study. While study text can have 1,000 pages, you might see that few pages are directly addressing some LOs. So those LOs are very important. I don't know whether I have, I thought I have referred to in the study text. I can give the page reference. But you just look at the first chapter, the corporate governance chapter itself. What is this question? Now, there is something called perspectives of corporate governance. The corporate governance can be explained from multiple perspectives. One of the perspective is stakeholder perspective. What are the other perspective? Shareholder perspective, stakeholder perspective, financial economics perspective, right? So like that, there are different perspectives. Now with this, now see, this company would have been a shareholder perspective. They would have been thinking from shareholders' angle because it's a family-owned company, right? So they want to increase their profitability, dividends, taking money from the company, right? And you see there are a lot of indications in the case study that, the village is not happy with what they do. Employees are not happy. Third-party employees statutory payments have not been made, which means while they operate in their business model. Now I'm using some words from integrated reporting. See the word business model, the money-making machine. While they make money, they are not conscious about stakeholders. You see, what is sixth capital? If you take social and relationship capital, that talks to stakeholders. So stakeholder approach to governance is simply the triple bottom line. Again, triple bottom line can be ESG. Easily ESG, in other word, would be triple bottom line thinking. Only thing is G is added. What is triple bottom line? You are thinking about the economy, right? Economic success is number one. You're also thinking about the society. That's the second bottom line, right? And here, actually, this E is for environment, social, right? There is another E for any business to be successful, that is economic. Now, especially ESG, there is a lot of attention on the environmental, social, and when it comes to governance, how governance can strengthen, in addition to profit making, how can we take seriously into account positive or negative outcome that business create in terms of environment, right? And the society. So society in this case study, the village is unhappy, the employees are leaving the company, that is given in the case study, and third-party employees are not properly paid. All these are social issues. There are environmental issues given, social issues. So there doesn't seem to be a good governance process where these issues are discussed at the board level. So I'll show you the page reference that you can refer in your open book. So I'm asking what is the open book. That will be very helpful for you to write an answer that how ESG to be applied. Can any students tell me what is the open book? What is the page number? Use the chat and write on ESG reporting, not the integrated reporting framework, right? Okay, so then I was explaining to this question. If examiner can ask you this way, explain the meaning of stakeholder approach to governance and the importance of shifting from shareholder approach to stakeholder approach. If that question comes, answer is very simple, because I told in very simple language, shareholder means they maximize shareholder family money, right? But stakeholder means while you make money for the family, you are really responsible. You are giving the best to your employees. You are paying your creditors, right? And then you take care about the environmental effect of company's operation. Then it's stakeholder approach. In operating the business, you are thinking not just one bottom line, that is economic, but other two bottom lines, that is environmental and social. So ESG really represent, stakeholder approach is a good way to address ESG concern. You see the connectivity, right? And then the other language that is spoken here, this is from page number 3. Yeah, it says interest of certain stakeholders have not been identified. You can easily list out what are those interests I mentioned to you now, right? And there are some legal cases. You see the bigger stakeholder they have ignored is customer. You see, this being a company that provides, really good business, because now we are really struggling to import medicine. So these are all Ayurvedic items. However, if it is counterproductive, if it leads to some other diseases, it is disastrous. So therefore, there are product liability claims. All those are what? ESG issues, your customer, or sustainability issues. Now read this carefully. I am reading now. I told you a lot of things, but I'm reading now what is given. Interest of certain stakeholders have not been identified and addressed. Stakeholder approach to governance has been recommended by what is the exam question that may come, right? Evaluate the statement. What is stakeholder approach to governance? Why it is important to move away from shareholder to stakeholder? What is your answer? I can now open a Word document in simple English. We can write 3 bullet points. That is the answer. Maybe 5 marks, right? That 5 marks you should be able to get easily. Then I explain actually what should be in the answer to say that you should not. Stakeholder approach to governance is a holistic approach where a company takes into consideration the interest of all stakeholders, in particular the impact of company's operation on the environment and society, and give some link to the case study, right? In the given case study, it appears that the way currently company operates create negative impact to E and S. So that's kind of answer you can easily write. Then also they say incorporating sustainability principle into strategy development. What is this connection? So that's where now see this sustainability reporting. Again, you might ask, what is sustainability reporting? Oh, these are similar. ESG reporting, sustainability reporting. The thinking is very similar. Again, principle of sustainability reporting is in your open book. I'm asking you what the open books means, right? Let's see. Yeah. One student has given very good page numbers. Yes, it is corporate governance best practice. Open now. You can press Control F or go to I don't know whether it is principle H1. The ESG reporting is specifically mentioned what is meant by ESG reporting and what board of directors should do. And also you can search this heading called sustainability principle. And then they have gone into different sustainability. Corporate, the customer sustainability means what? Product sustainability means what? Right? Sustainable business success means not only to make profit, but make profit by taking into account stakeholder approach. Sorry. Then we spoke about governance and governance issue. You can also see there's another slide I will show you. This ERP thing we already spoke about. Then internal control, I will come again separately and cover. See, something very important, this integration, I really recommend you to go through last past paper. What question examiner tested. If this area to be tested is very similar. Maybe students have not properly answered again coming, but here more emphasis is given on manual journal entry. Can any students tell me what is one of the key principle in fraud standard that you can use to explain misuse of manual journal entry? What is that topic? That's the specific fraud risk. Only brilliant student can answer this question. Hello. Can somebody say, did somebody say anything? Yeah, FFR, one student said something. No, I can see your reply in FFR means fraudulent financial reporting. No. What is the main principle connecting to journal entry? Yes, anyone else? Opportunity, those are fraud, those are fraud risk factors. FRF. Fraud risk factors are the fraud triangle. Right. So the principle is management override of control. So remember, there are 3 ways management override of control can take place. Yeah, one student now answering. One is journal entry, inappropriate journal entry. Second one, accounting estimates. Again, applicable in this case study. Why? They have done a revaluation, right? So those assumptions may not be appropriate, right? The revaluation, you can easily connect to fraud risk and write an answer, right? Then the third aspect of management overriding control is related party transaction, which is not really apparent in this case study. So two aspects of management override in control. There's journal entry and the fair valuation or estimates risk given. Then ethics question. One is business ethics, as I mentioned to you. This company, business, the way business is conducted, sometimes we can question whether it is ethical when there are product issue not compliant with the certification, right? Quality of products. This is very serious and easily examiner can give you a ethics question based on this. CFO has raised concern about certain transactions recognized in the financial statement as he feel they do not conform to accounting standards, right? Someone, CFO has raised to someone regarding manner in which some transactions are recognized. So CEO directly, I think someone is the chairman, right? Directly talking to the owner that there's a problem, which means what ethical question can be tested? Maybe somebody's influence in the CFO. Now here, examiner can definitely prepare for basic ethics question. These 5 marks you can easily get. What examiner can test? You can apply conceptual if there is any pressure for the accountant. Apply conceptual framework approach and evaluate the threat. So if accountant is or if CFO is going to engage in any of or accept any of these incorrect or inappropriate accounting, what principles are going to be affected? It's the integrity, professional competence and due care. It's the professional behavior, right? If CFO thinks about his pocket, that's the self-interest threat. So answer is there is a self-interest threat to professional competence and due care, professional behavior and integrity, right? If CFO were to engage in any of these unethical or inappropriate accounting, that way you can write the answer. Second way ethics question can be tested is to apply ethical conflict resolution, which means somebody is put in pressure, maybe one of the director, family director, that somehow, we are under pressure, somehow, do this accounting, research and development cost, capitalize this R&D here. This is the point. The auditors has raised concerns. This is definite point if examiner test risk of misstatement. Why? Intangible assets, I am sure Chamath would have touched. Usually, intangible assets, non-monetary assets without physical substance, you have 3 criteria. That's the economic benefit test, controllability test, identifiability test. But when it comes to development cost, right? When it comes to development cost, you have set of additional criteria. Now, if these criteria are not met, you are not able to capitalize development cost. Right? So the technical feasibility, availability of market, intention to use, availability of resources, if these are not satisfied, you cannot capitalize. So in that way, perhaps maybe somebody is putting pressure to the CFO saying that I think one student has pressed the button asking the control, please, maybe a mistake. I don't know, you are there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah, one student, somebody, maybe a mistake, right? Requesting control.
Yeah, so no, should be mistake, I think.
I can see on my screen anyway, it's a mistake, but okay. So what I explained to you is a very important point. Now, this can be connected to ethical issue. Now, somebody is put in pressure, accountant, you must capitalize this cost, but it's a research cost. The development cost is you apply research finding to come up with a new product or process. If that rationale is not there, you will never capitalize. And those criteria that I mentioned to you, we can put those criteria under pirate, right? The word, the intention, availability, resources, etc. I mentioned those. So now that can be seen as accounting thing, but that those type of things can easily be tested also under risk of misstatement. Now see what I was trying to explain to you, if ethical question were to be tested, somebody is put in pressure to capitalize this development cost. Now that is a conflict. Now clearly it cannot be capitalized. Now when there is a conflict, how you should resolve that conflict? Can you apply AAA approach? Now those AAA or whatever all are very similar in our open book. You can now, if you have the book, go to the section called ethical conflict resolution. That's something that can be tested. Now, when there is ethical conflict, you have to first identify what is the issue, what is the principle that is affected, and then what are the alternative options, evaluate, talk to the company, and all of that. Finally, you might even decide to leave the company or inform the institute. So like that, there is ethical conflict resolution. I spoke 10 minutes about ethics, 5 minutes. I don't want to discuss that again. In the latter part of this presentation, I will go into the areas like ESG and some of the areas in little detail so that you can be benefited, and please ask any question while I discuss. Now, here, while Chamath has nicely explained to you the whole case study through diagram, now I am putting that to a model. Now see input. Now the input to this business is natural products, herbal, all of this. And then there are people, 500 staff, 100 executives, and they source staff for packaging from manpower company. Outside input also comes in. Company-owned retail outlets. Now this is another, so they have 2 factories as well as retail outlet. Actually 2 factories also should come this as an input in terms of manufactured capital, the human capital, and then do they have any particular unique intangibles that they use? Case studies say that is the weak area. Right now, see, did you see this statement? The company lacks proper branding and intellectual property rights. Now that capital they are lacking. Now see, what I'm trying to explain to you is what? Multi-capital approach. Now 2 factories, that's the manufactured capital. Right here, human capital. And then what they are using is all about natural capital. What they are lacking, there are a few areas they are lacking. Really they are lacking intellectual capital. Also they are lacking social and relationship capital. Why villagers are unhappy, right? Now see the activities they do, they cultivate. Now that is where, you know, where accounting standard point of view, I saw Chamath touch about the plantation. Now also one of the new development in the business, please note this point carefully. As a strategy, they want to automate. Now, do you see a ESG issue with automation? Now, this is where you apply theory to the case study. Is there any ESG issue with this strategy? Because strategy has to be sustainable. Sustainable means you have to look at the impact of that strategy, not only about making money by automating, but is there an adverse impact of this? What is the answer? Automation can have an impact. To whom? People might lose their jobs. That becomes a social issue. Are you going to train them and deploy them? Then you are thinking about that risk, right? And this is the output. And outcome wise, so we can see their turnover is growing and they are increasing their manufactured capital. They are going to build a research center, new outlets going to come. And negatively, I have put in red color. These are not increasing. The value is going to be diminished. See, through complaints about the product quality, environmental issue, social issue. Now, what I explained to you is what? Any business, finance cannot make money. You need to have factories, you need to have brain, and you need to have people. Society should be happy and support you. You need to use natural resources as input, which through business activities you convert to output and then create outcome. Now see, while we can use this to explain value creation, in this case study very clearly we see the value is eroded. Perhaps if examine asks your question in this way, evaluate the value creation process using multi-capital approach. Look at the pilot paper, that is a very similar question, right? If you use multi-capital approach, you can comment. While they have increased their revenue, we can see through these business activities, there is what negative impact, which is in this previous slide. That's the answer that you will write if that type of advanced question is tested, right? So that's all about, you know, that's the beauty of applying something practically. Now see, what I explained to you is the business model. Now look at the outer part of this. If you want to really embed sustainability into this, right, or the ESG thinking into this, where is the ESG here? Right now, you are thinking while you are doing the business about the environment, the natural capital. You are thinking about the society. That is ESG, human. This is ESG. And where is the governance? This is governance. The board of directors govern the way business is operated, and they look at the risk. What are the risks, the performance, how the future looks like, and they allocate strategies accordingly. Everything is aligned to company's fundamental purpose. So that's where, and company operates in the external environment, that's where the strategy setting comes in. Now you see, when you study corporate governance, have you seen in your study text the functions of the board of directors in strategy making, policy making, etc. So that whole thing can be explained using this approach. Now, why I am showing this to you? This is one of the framework that can be used to touch ESG, right? And then you can definitely apply GRI framework. And there are other framework, other principles which I will cover, right? If you have any question, please ask. So let's go in a little bit more about non-financial reporting. And now see, this slide captures the meaning of ESG. ESG refers to a set of standards, right? Where company is socially conscious, right? ESG defines the environmental, social, and governance factors. And usually these are normal indicators that we capture: climate change, natural resources, pollution. And then under social, what comes is, now that's why this company talks about all of this. They talk about human capital issue, product liability issues, right? Stakeholder opposition. Some stakeholders don't like the villages, the social opportunities, uh, likewise. So the governance refers to how the board of directors behave in this whole thing, right? So the main argument of ESG is to incorporating ESG into investment strategies that these factors can create or erode stakeholder value. That's where the stakeholder, even beyond shareholder, stakeholder approach comes, right? Beyond this business case rationale, many investors and other stakeholders also argue that ESG means that you are a good corporate citizen. And then stakeholder approach to governance. Most of the stakeholders, including this company's investor, they are keen on ESG reporting because those are called socially responsible investments. Right now, these are the reporting framework. So I asked this question from you earlier. Answer: GRI. Right? These you can say sustainability reporting, ESG. All these are connected topic. GRI framework, integrated reporting framework, and sustainability accounting standard board they publish, and UN Global Compact. They have also given some framework. So I don't need in this session to explain these things to you. Right? It is our duty to tell you that these areas are very sensitive. There is a chapter, just one chapter, please go through. Also remember, examiner can ask you basic question, what are the advantages, benefit, that's also there in the study text, right? So this is GRI. So GRI basically covers three main standards covering economic, environmental, and social. There again, you see the ESG comes. Yes, right? G is obviously embedded as a part of this. And then this is another framework that sustain. Now most of the company you see, they explain everything in the annual report, right? Now this is another framework which I was not mentioned in the previous chapter, how companies operation can contribute to sustainable development goals, which we call SDG. So this again has lot of, now there are 17 principles. If you look at some of these principles closely associate with ESG. So there are a lot of, about water, about the poverty, right? Things like that. So I don't want to go through in detail this one. And be aware that Colombo Stock Exchange has issued a guideline on ESG, right? And that guideline explains the benefit of ESG. It's good for you to look at if you want to drive ESG in a company. The leadership has to support. That's where the governance comes. The board of directors should see this as an important topic. And then, like your case study say, you have to look at the stakeholder approach, not shareholder approach. And third one is very, very important. In this case study, can you identify, please write this word, material issues. See this word, this is very different now in audit materiality also in your syllabus. Now this materiality level is what? This means what topics are important as far as the company is concerned from ESG point of view. That is called, please write, material topics. If I tell you in a bank, what is a material topic? Can a water be a material topic to bank? Answer may be no. But water can be a material topic to what? Coca-Cola. because they withdraw water, right? And maybe a hotel. Now that based on the business model, you need to identify what ESG issues are there. Now I will show you it later in one of the Word document I just put down, extracted from this case study. What are the ESG issues, right? And then you need to identify what are these topics. Now in this company, we can easily see third party, they are using third party labor. That's the material topic. They use natural resources. Depletion of natural resources is another material topic for this case study. So likewise, you should be able to identify. Then you have to have a performance measures. How do we measure it? And report it. Now that's this case study, report ESG and communicate. No, so these are very easy. It helpful for you to, again, if you write in an answer, these points are, if there is a similar question in the exam, imagine if you write and within bracket, you write as a source, this recommendation are in line with communicate, the Columbus Stock Exchange, our examiner will wonder, wow, brilliant student, right? Because these points are very, don't say, this is not in our study to be a mature student, that this, if there is argument, some question require thinking and writing. For those, this type of information will be very useful. Now I'm moving to governance. Possible exam question from governance, right? Evaluate major deviation from corporate governance best. Now, this is a basic way examiner can put it. Easy way, huh? What are the major deviation from corporate governance best practices and recommend improvement? But difficult question if I ask you, risk management separately, I said, recommend, right? Recommend or advise the board on implementing enterprise risk management. What are you going to write? Now, what you write, you can derive from your open book. So there is a section in your corporate governance code on enterprise risk management under the heading of risk management and internal control. The first paragraph is to say the board has to identify, right, the principal risks that the board is willing to take, that is risk appetite, and have a process to identify and manage risk, something like that. So that is about risk management. Now that's the difficult way of asking question. Examiner will target some area in corporate governance and ask you a tough question. But easiest way to ask question, what are the deviation? Every student will write. They don't have independent directors, no CEO and chairman, no nomination committee, no audit committee, no. Okay, every student will write and get marks, right? But these are relatively difficult question again. Evaluate board effectiveness and recommend improvement. Now see, that's where you have to read the study text, right? So board effectiveness is a big topic in the study text. For example, what can improve an effective board? Having non-executive directors, more independent directors. Diverse board can improve the effectiveness of the board. The board decision-making process should be, in this case study, they say board minutes are not there. Women on board can improve the board effect. Now, like that, you should be able to draw from the knowledge and apply to the case study. Now, board functions, if the examiner asks, remember there are 4 board functions: the strategy formulation, policy making, monitoring, and accountability. How you can apply this to the case study? Think. Now, if you think like this, don't worry, even this question is not tested in corporate governance. Why? For the past papers, corporate governance has been a separate question. But now you are trying to apply all of your knowledge to this case study, whether it is tested or not in the exam, it will help, because examiner may give you a separate question again. You are practically, you are brushing up the knowledge that you already have. Then board responsibility, ESG reporting again. I don't want to open the book and go through now. Please go through now. Today, if you haven't done, go to your corporate governance book. Go to the section called ESG reporting. There's 1 page, 1 or 2 page. Just read it and you can use it. Don't just copy paste. When you write in the exam, try to align to the case study in some form. This is the learning outcome 4.2.1 that could be tested in the exam. This is not tested so far. Discuss the concept of corporate governance from different perspectives. So you must know what is operational perspective, relationship perspective, stakeholder, financial, economics, and social. And also this question has not been tested so far, the difference between governance and management. Now, page 3 says this, we already read it. So these are the various approaches to governance. Out of these approaches, if I now today you can go through page number 730 to 732. In that, draw some attention to what? Stakeholder approach. The idea which I already explained to you, focus on why the stakeholders. Don't only think about the family in a way that create value, long-term value to all stakeholders. And this is very similar to the societal perspective that specifically say it's about ESG, right? In the study text, right? Response. Now, societal perspective is you are thinking more about the society, responsibility of the company towards the environment and society as a whole. The board key role is to play here overseeing ESG issues. Now, you know, if I ask you in the now another question examiner can ask, evaluate ESG issues in this case study, material ESG issues. Very easily you can give a list, right? So those are innovative questions that can be tested, just going little above the explicit learning outcome, right? Explicit means as it is testing. But examiner, now there are, I mean, very smart question in our papers, CA papers. Sometimes I mean, it really requires, rather than just asking a direct question, to ask a question to see your logical reasoning, your ability to make professional judgment. So I covered now corporate governance questions that can be tested. I explained to ESG question that can come. I touch fraud area. Now, risk of misstatement, definitely there are many risk of misstatement given. Examiner can choose any one of these. Examiner may ask, evaluate the risk of misstatement. Examiner may ask, what are the risk at assertion level? Examiner may ask, what are the whatever it is, all about. All these three learning outcomes connect to one thing. That one thing is called what? Risk of misstatement. Here it's about directly risk of misstatement, right? Here it's specifically about assertion level identification, financial statement level. Now this one is another interesting topic, which I covered in the previous webinar discussion also. I mean, in our previous pre-scene discussion, how business risk can be converted to risk. Now, for example, that village issue, environment, now very good example. I want your reaction, students. Now, there is one issue in the case study, right? One student just where can we find sustainable principle in stakeholder? No, your corporate governance code has a topic called sustainable principle. I can get the book and now find out. Or I can open, it will take time. If you have the book, please go to the annexure content page and go. Can one student tell me the page number? Right, that's one. Secondly, this the stakeholder approach, the multiple approach is given in the study text. I mentioned to you page numbers in the previous slide, right? So these are the page numbers 730 to 732, right? And I'm asking a question from you students now, that is can you tell me, this case study says there is an environmental issue, they are releasing wastewater. If they don't fix this, their license to operate is going to cancel. Now that is a business risk. What can be the risk of misstatement coming from that? Anybody? Very good. So that's a going concern, right? So that way, the going concern is assertion level risk or financial statement level risk. Huh? How do you answer that? If it is assertion, what is the assertion? Right? If there is a going concern question, what can be the impact? No, going concern you cannot just apply to one assertion. Going concern means you're looking financial statements as a whole, there is a problem, right? What is the word that we use? MU. What is MU? This is accounting standard, LK is 1. If there is a material uncertainty, the disclosure has to come. If disclosure is not there, how it will affect our audit report? Those things also you have to be aware. What is the audit report? Are you going to give emphasis of matter? That's the traditional thinking, no? So you have to have separate matter called what? Separate paragraph on. No, don't jump to adverse opinion. No? That's wrong. You can't give adverse opinion like that. See, going concern is a hot topic in this paper because that's specifically in the syllabus. It's applicable from both accounting standard in case 1 and more than that. The focus is from, there's a separate chapter on going concern. It's not a CAM, don't go to CAM. So now see your understanding is not very great. Huh? So one says CAM, one says adverse. Yeah. So the main thing is, yeah, it can lead to different opinion, but the main topic is what? Very good. One student says material uncertainty relating to going concern. Earlier we said emphasis on matter. However, if disclosure is not adequate, based on that you may decide to bring it to adverse opinion, right, or a qualification. Likewise, but you know that I'm all this refreshing. You have to refresh your knowledge likewise. Okay. Now, audit committee also can come, things like that. I think now I will ask more questions. Now this, if you I will also open the chat. It's very good to interact. If examiner asks you evaluate 5 risk of misstatement, what are the top 5 you want to write? Can you use the chat and quickly answer? Let's see whether you will bring the top 5. I'll show you in the next slide few big items, and I can also conclude after that by going to possible exam question, and then how should you showing you some questions and how should you prepare. I'm asking you a question, right? Can you write 5, let's say three big risk of misstatement, revaluation reserve, going concern. Don't write revaluation reserve. If you write properly, property, plant and equipment valuation assertion, then you have to write properly. Intangible asset, very good. But if you want to specify, yes, good. R&D capitalization. Capitalization of development cost may not be appropriate likewise. Yeah, very good. Now see some of these things I have put down. Provision definitely, because many places they discuss provision and contingencies. You need to really, you see even some students miss this. If you write the answer for provision and contingency, you have to use the right word. Present obligation versus possible obligation. What's the difference? If those words are not there when you write the answer, you will not get marks, right? So the contingency can arise due to 2 reasons. Do you know what are the 2 reasons where contingency can arise? So like that, you have to be very, very sharp, right? Contingency can arise either through a possible obligation or it is a present obligation, but you cannot reliably measure, right? Likewise, be very sharp. So the risk of misstatement, but you have not mentioned the bigger, yeah, one student have mentioned the revenue recognition fraud risk. Why exchange gain or loss? You are not writing. That's another topic. PP evaluation, provision, balance. Now while you can list out in the exam, you will not get marks for listing. Can you write very powerful 2-3 lines about each of this? Then you are very good. So that's definitely possible area. Now see, examiner can test anything. Corporate governance can be tested. Ethics for sure, right? Because that's given. And then risk of misstatement can be tested. Another area which is maybe a little tough for you if it comes to evaluate the control environment or what? What is the other one? Control environment or what is the other one? Internal control framework. That question, please be prepared. That may not be very easy unless you read the open book and prepared and go. Now let me open this and show you some of these things that I want to show you, right? Explain 5 COSO component. This has been tested in a past paper, right? Similar question can come. Identify deficiencies in the current internal control system. Please write these answers now and see how well you will write this answer. When you say internal control environment, you have to explain the weaknesses in the control environment. There are many because there are no, now see, this is where I use the word GACA, right? That's from the new revised standard. So control environment using GACA. Part of control environment is to talk about governance. This company has several governance issues, right? And then culture. So this company also seems to have culture related issues in terms of integrity and ethics, right? Then other things you can explain in terms of attracting talents. People are leaving the company. So things like that. You can talk about control environment. And then this company does not have a risk assessment process anyway. They don't have a risk assessment. But here we talk about those risks that management identify. This is a business risk like the environmental issue, which will affect the going concern assumption. Like that, whether company has a process of risk assessment. And then control activities they have. This case study has several issues about information system and communication, and then monitoring control again. I think this case study, do they have an internal audit function? Can any students tell me whether this case study has internal audit or not? Huh? What do you think? Did you notice one issue? Big issue in the case study? Can anybody tell me? This is the issue. These are very sharp points that you can definitely write. This is a serious issue about the control environment. Why? The head of internal audit reports to CFO. Therefore, internal audit is not independent. Internal auditor not independence means what? Your control environment monitoring is weak. So monitoring is weak, governance is weak, right? The monitoring is weak, information system is weak. So most of the areas, control activities also we see there are frauds, everything. You see, you can analyze this case study in any ways and have different answers. Do all of this now. Is the best time. Why? Your exam is end of the month. Because all of this, whether come in the exam or not, irrelevant. Now you are preparing anything that comes, I am trying to answer. That then you go to the exam with open mind, right? So this is a very important one if tested in the exam. And control environment. Another question would be evaluate the control environment, right? This question comes is totally on the control environment. That's where you talk about AAA, right? Awareness actions, the attitude, awareness and actions of the board and management regarding the controls and their importance. Specifically, you will cover here the governance. They don't have independent directors, they don't have audit committees, right? And they don't have internal auditors reporting. So all of this can be discussed under control, and there are ethical issues. All this will go to control environment if examiners separate. The other thing is, now let's say they will say the external auditor is going to audit. And as a part of the audit, explain the impact of control environment on the audit. That's very, very important question. And remember in your syllabus, you are not supposed to know how to draft audit procedures. This is not audit in paper, right? This paper gives you overall perspective of how. That's why this is called ABR, Advanced Business Reporting. So you need to understand various stakeholders in business reporting. Auditor is an important stakeholder. From auditor's lens, how to look at risk. And you are not supposed to draft audit procedures here. But the knowledge about internal control risks are very important when you become a CFO. So from that perspective, right, if risks are identified, and then control environment is company's thing, not auditor's thing. If control environment is weak, they will ask what is the impact this can have on the audit. Remember, if control environment is weak, specifically fraud risk is going to increase, right? And generally auditors risk assessment, there is auditors reliance on internal controls may be weaker. And then obviously audit is going for a substantive approach, but those detailed questions about audit approach, but basic fundamental questions may come because the word audit risk assessment, everything has been brought back to the syllabus under the revision that there was little revision of learning outcome that took place. Then this question I covered, evaluate company's ability to create value using multi-capital approach. That's where you can explain social and relationship capital. There are complaints about product liability, recently few workers due not paid, all of this, right? And then these informations are also very much. I just extracted to a document something that will be useful for you, the unlicensed software, all of these things, right? And fraud matter also we discuss. Yeah. This journal entry, accounting standard matter, and this is another risk of misstatement, right? Especially I think Chama touched this point, the fair valuation. When you fair value the share, they can be biased in determining the fair value, especially if they have, okay, these are listed things, but still there may be a possibility of fraud risk. Now, what are the other questions that you want to ask? Already have asked some question. I think I have given you a good coverage now. And please ask any questions if you have further questions. One student say course of frame. I'm looking in your chat now. They have internal audit. Okay. Yeah, I think we have touched. If you have any further question, please ask. Otherwise, I'll finish in another 1 minute. I'll allow you to ask questions. Yeah, thank you very much for the comment. Webinars on CL1. Okay. Now, one thing I want to tell you, right? Remember this. This paper is a very challenging paper, and I am telling you, if you are a brilliant student, right, who think beyond the obvious thing of passing the exam, if you approach this subject strategically, because when I say strategically, you are looking accounting standards critically, and then why not learn how to write or how to learn the language of auditing to explain those issues in auditing sense. Now this slide, then automatically you are going to be thorough and learn internal control related things, the governance things. These are definitely going to be very valuable in your career as well as in your final case study, right? These are all areas. So what my advice to you, if you don't only focus on the accounting part, because most students spend a lot of time, right, and ignore this area. So if you concentrate on both consolidation, accounting standard, and this section, you are heading for a prize. So that's all I want to say, and all of you can easily pass the exam. With that, I will finish the session. Thank you very much. And yeah, so sorry, I will, if you have more question, I'm ready to take. There are questions. Will they check audit procedure? No. I wrote, even I gave the feedback to CA when one of the paper they asked audit procedure. It is not, because there is no learning outcome where you should know drafting audit procedure. Even in the study text, nowhere you can find that. Therefore, you don't need to learn that audit procedure drafting. Can we have these slides? Yes. In the third page, the institutional shareholder request for two board position, which means two tiers, and no, that is not the case, right? Now, two-tier supervisory board is one of the governance model, a Japanese governance model or European governance model. What this means is right now all directors are family directors. Now, whenever investor comes, usually they want, because see, finally, what is, if examine asks what is the difference between governance and management, the governance is all about exercising power, right? About four things: the strategy formulation, policy making, and accountability and monitoring. Now that power is, you have to, okay, one part of power is a shareholder, obviously, but then decisions are made by the board. So board membership, they see to make decisions, strategic decision involving strategy. So the idea there is they are going to bring another two directors. So now that directors may be independent. Now, if examiner asks you advice, so what is your view about that in other director, whatever, is always good to have non-executive director for this company. Why? There is a serious governance issue right now. Why? One is CEO and chair. The other one is they don't have any of the non-executive directors, and there are no independent directors. There are no senior directors, whatever. And obviously, when they go Dirisavi, I forgot to mention one more thing. Please go through Dirisavi board, specifically in your corporate governance code. They say number of non-executive. If it is Dirisavi board, the number is reduced. And especially if it is a listed company, there are corporate governance requirement mandatory, like audit committee by listing rules. So please be aware. Here MD and chairman same, so need to explain the rationale. So here MD and chairman same, so need to explain the rationale for it. So that is why I am saying, student, MD and chair is the same, is a serious issue. Examiner can ask you only this part because it's in the study text. Evaluate the risk associated with one person acting both as MD and chairman, right? So that means there are many risks that's in the study text. Please go through. For example, one, yeah, what about the age of the chairman? Okay, yeah, that also you might comment, but you know, the how old chairman. Uh, but this previous question is very important, because if one person handling both, remember, number one, there's a conflict of interest, and then board cannot make that one person accountable. If CEO is separate, board can make CEO accountable when something goes wrong. So like that, there are five things or five or six issues. If CEO and chairman is the same, that is, they are not in your corporate governance code. It's only there in the study text. Please go through. Any other questions? How will you share the Aruna? Are you there? Aruna? Yeah, I will
Yes,
check
I will
with
share the record. Yeah.
Aruna. You are there, no?
Yes, I am there. I will share the record.
All right. So we can share these slides. I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Yes, tomorrow I will share. Sir.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, students? Right. No. Okay. So wish you all the best. So make sure that this challenging paper you pass, and we know that this is a very difficult period, but don't ever underestimate your studies. This is your future. This is our country. This is your future. Remain positive and pass your exam. All the best.